talking just a little bit about what music is. And are any of you Facebooker people? Facebooky people? Yeah, and this was, I just saw this. It was an interview with a famous pianist, and he was doing a Q&A with the people who had attended. It was either before his concert or after. Did any of you see this? Just like the other day. And somebody asked him about which Beethoven he preferred, if he liked this one over that one. And he said, I can answer the question. And everybody was looking perplexed, and he says, no, it's a question that cannot be answered, because what you're asking me to do is to pick one over the other. And he said, if you start to divide music by the elements, and you start to say, I like this tempo, or I like the dynamics in this one, or I like the emotional content of this piece, then you're separating it all out. And though those things individually are all important, they don't make up the composite, the whole of what music is. And he made this comment. He says that music is about integrating all of those features into one connected experience. I'm going to say that again. I think that's so powerful. Sure, he said. It took me 10 lessons to write this down, so that's worth reading. Rhythm, tempo, technique, note style, the atmosphere, the emotions are all elements of music, but they are not the music itself. These are individual features critical to the whole, but they are not the music. Isn't that cool? Now, how often, as you're playing, or how many of you are pianists? Would you say you're more that's more your instrument? Any organist? We have some go both ways. Okay. Some singers. I think this applies really to all of these nuances. Any whatever. All of those things are important, but it's easy to get focused and get affixed on one thing. Sometimes it's just the notes. And you can't get past the notes because it may be a difficult Marquez something or other. And you can edit that out too. And it may be a difficult piece that you struggle with, and you're just trying to hang in there and get the notes, and you're not even venturing toward expression or dynamics, because you're just locked into, is it a G? I don't know. This is a ledger line. I don't know. You're just kind of guessing on what it might be. But there's something about performing music that when we integrate all of those aspects together, we begin to form that music. And that's what bubbles up. It effervesces inside our spirit and our core. And that, to me, is when music begins to happen. And I guess what I'm saying to you, maybe I'm preaching to the choir here, is that we've got to get to that next level. And I heard this the other day. This was what was the old Nike slogan? Remember the Nike shoes? Just do it. And I want to take that to the next level. Just do the next thing. So if you're so bothered by just notes and you're working on notes, then expand for just a moment. Do the next thing. Add an element of dynamic. Add an element of the emotional part, or some of the expression, the passion that is within the song. Do the next thing. Just do the next thing. If we get complacent, I think we're almost, if you're like me, how many years have y'all been doing this? I mean, goodness. Again, this isn't for television, but I'm 61. I started playing when I was 5, but for church around 19 years of age. So it feels like for 43 years. How many of you, 40 years or more, you've been in church music? 40? Yeah, there we go. It's all right. Just stand up and say, I'm married, I played, confession feels good. 30 years or more. 30. 20? Yeah, we all kind of blur in there somewhere, don't we? But I think that the point is, it's so easy to get complacent and to find a place where we're just like, my good is good enough. My good is good enough. And that's just not a good place to be. So I want us to find and examine some ways over this short session of how we can take it to the next level. I get frustrated when I go to a church and what I experience is the organist and pianist just playing the notes. And they may be playing them well. They may be playing them, dare I say, without error. but it's still just the notes. If you were in the class, the last group, and several of you were, we went through a piece, and I showed you the introduction if it was just perfunctory. And it was so different because it was the notes, and I played the notes correctly, did I not? But they had no feeling. They were void of emotion. It's just doing that next thing. And it's also hard. Are any of you choir directors, the music directors? Isn't it hard to tell somebody how to feel the music? You can't. You really can't do it. Either it's there or it hasn't been unleashed. And for me, that's what I want to do, is unleash you. I wish I could just cast a spell and say, go be unleashed. But we're all somewhat tethered to what we know and what we're comfortable, our comfort zone. And also you're tethered to being afraid to express, maybe due to lack of confidence. Sometimes in a particular song, you're doing something that's more challenging. And so you don't want to let go. But I have found some of my greatest musical experiences have been when I just let it go. And just play and don't worry about it. Now that happens oftentimes in my living room. And it may be just me and the dog sitting there, but there's just something freeing about expressing and just being untethered to the music. I just recently did a brand new book, in fact, that it's called Break Forth into Song. This is hot off the press. I was asked to do this piece by the editor of the Lorenz Keyboard Music Department, which is Larry Shackley. And he said, I said, well, what level? Because we're always trying to find a level, if it's intermediate or moderately easy or difficult. And he says, just right, Mary. Oh, yeah. And so I love that. I had just done a concert in a church, and if you've ever watched me play, I throw a little emotion into it. But the music is just inside, man. And there's always a lot of gesturing, but I don't know, it just swells up, and I feel like I just don't have enough keys. I envision in heaven there's this unlimited piano. I can just roll on the thing, and I can just keep playing. And I was playing a piano postlude. A little girl, probably 10 years of age, was standing behind me, and her mommy kept going, "Come on, honey, we've got to go. Come on." I heard this, Andrea, we've got to go. But Mommy, I think her head's about to come off. I remember listening to that, and my daughter calls me the Beyonce of church music. If y'all don't know who Beyonce is, you're better off. She says in the sacred music world. But there's something about being unleashed. And so in my foreword, I actually wrote that I had just, that following an event in Kansas, it was at Sterling College, one of the students said, "You have unleashed your passion." And I love that. I thought, well then, yay. Of course, you never know, somebody back in the back is laughing at you. But then I thought, I don't care. Because what I do is not for these people. It's not for you. It's my vertical time, It's whatever I'm doing here that has got to connect with God, that He can smile on me and say, see, I did that in you. My story is so unique that I've been playing since I was 5. But I've never studied piano. I've never had one piano lesson my whole life. I played by ear since I was a little girl. I could sit down and play anything I heard on the television, the radio, and I'm the youngest of 6 kids, and in my house, you did everything kind of in order. There's 5 of us girls and 1 boy. And Mama got the John Thompson Big Red Book and taught my oldest 2 sisters and my brother out of that Red Book. But then she went back to her job as a school teacher of the LRE. And so she just ran out of years. And so the other 3 of us never studied piano. But I was really the only one that had a natural ability to play by ear. So when my older sisters would get off the keyboard, I would sit down and take their little swans on the lilies and their little basic thumbs here and fingers here, and then I would jazz it up. And I'd do it to where they would be frustrated. Mama, don't let her do that. And so it was a challenge, but I understand, the pyramid of piano lessons. But all that to say that for me, I've always just had that passion within me to play. And it was never structured in such a way that anybody told me what I could and what I could not do. When I went to Carson Newman College, you ever heard of it? It's a small Baptist college in East Tennessee. I was a home economics major. Now y'all want to exit. But I majored in home ec because of the reputation of 4 older sisters who had all been home ec majors. My dad was an older school father. I grew up in the era when mamas did stay home and they cooked every meal and made the clothes. We all learned to sew as young little girls. And one of my favorite stories is telling how we all went to church in the same bolt of fabric. I mean, there would be 5 floral dresses and a floral shirt for my brother. And one of my sisters in Virginia stood up once and she said, "That's true, but when you had a date and you came home and you sat down and your outfit matched the pillows." You know? But we all knew how to cook and sew and raise family and all that time. It was really important to my mom and dad that we do that. But it wasn't my passion. Chemistry broke me. And I thought you had to have chemistry 101 in home ec. And I knew nothing about it. It just didn't penetrate the Harrisburg. And I remember struggling so bad. I thought, I'm failing college. This is where I'm going to drop out. And I went to the church there on campus one afternoon and just to have a little talk with Jesus to make it right. And I should have written that song. But anyway, a young student organist, I had kind of taught myself to play the organ. My mother being a school teacher, many afternoons I went to our church. We had this beautiful Chantz pipe organ, and I would go in and play on it. So I learned to play the organ, taught myself to play, and all that sort of thing. But here I was at college, and I was hearing this organ being played by a student preparing for an upcoming recital. And I finally got up the courage to go talk to her, and she was getting her things to leave, and I asked her if I could play the organ, and she said, well, she just took a piece of paper and pivoted it toward me, and it had a little string and a pencil on the clipboard. And I signed up. Apparently you sign up when you can have the organ. Well, the day I signed up to play was chapel. It was the 10 o'clock in the morning on Friday when all the students were coming together for worship. And I had signed up to play. I just wanted to play the organ. And I had never played that organ before. I just pulled a whole bunch of buttons and put my chemistry book on the music rack and sat there and played my heart. And because I could play by ear, I had learned a Bach prelude by ear. Only part of it, like the melodic part of it. And then I made up the rest. But anyway, following this service, I was coming off the platform, and the music department head, Dr. Lewis Ball, and Mary Charlotte Ball were coming toward me, and he asked me who I was and why I was playing the organ. I told him I was a freshman home economics major. And he told me only junior and senior organist students were allowed on the organ. But this little girl had not told me that. So his wife, an organ professor, she said, was that a Bach prelude you were playing? And you all looked her square in the eye and said, "Ma'am, I didn't mean to if it was." I didn't know what she's talking about. I know what Bach was. But they tested my ear and realized I could play anything. They took me over to his office, I think, to expel me. But she said, she played something. And she said, play a hymn. I could play a hymn in any key. I could do it right now. And then you got to play major, minor, doesn't matter. And then she said, I'll never forget, she said these words. Are y'all sitting down? Play a C scale. And I said, a who, what? A C scale. I didn't know what she was talking about. Scales are vicious things. And I didn't know C from G or M and O P. So when she realized I knew nothing about music, I didn't know where middle C was. I hadn't had the John Thompson. She said, you have a gift. And I believe at that moment, she saw potential in me to take me to that next level. She took me on as a student and would assign music that I would go to the library and listen and just so, on the records. Y'all remember albums? Yeah. I have to explain what those are. Yeah, and I would show up for lessons and put my music up there, and I'd just be, just thinking it was about time for baby. She'd just reach out where I was, I made a conversation. But all that to say, it was a bit of a challenge to do that. And I took my first position as a church organist. I shared with the last class. I was hidden by ferns for the entire 3.5 years, and nobody knew I was there. And so it was really a great testing ground. I remember one time I was doing, you all know the hymn, How Firm a Foundation? I was playing an organ prelude on it, and because I could play by ear, now this merger began to come together of these two. listen, you talk about passion. I was throwing everything out. I thought, well, that's not a hymn. And it was something the pastor later, he got up, he said, "Is Miss McDonald, that was all right because they were blind and needed our prayer." But the two began to merge together, this gift of being able to play my heart and being able to then realize I had to read music. And reading music was hard. You talk about just being stuck at that level of notes and having to write it down. And when the minister of music would say, "Play the tenor part," I would be, all boys eat grass, all boys eat, doing all those whole little things that you do to try to learn how to read music. And it was a struggle because I was learning it after I was doing it. It's one thing to learn it and then be able to do it, but learn it after the fact. But God had a plan, and I really believe that He introduced me, led me to, in 1980, John Purefoy, who was here in Waco with Word Music, moved, of all places, to my hometown to begin Purefoy Publishing Company. We were introduced by my minister of music, who challenged me to write a choral piece, and I had no idea. I thought, I can't write music. But he said, "You have a Bible?" "Yes." "Do you have a hymnal?" "Yeah." "And you can do the next thing." And gosh, what a journey. It's over 1,000 songs ago. I guess I share all that with you to say that God can take that little nugget of giftedness that He's instilled in all of us. And He has a plan that far exceeds our paradigm of what we're capable of doing. It's just a matter of becoming unleashed and untethered by our own limitations. Do you know what the word paradigm is? Have you heard? It was a buzzword in the 90s. A paradigm is the area in which of things you know, your comfort level of facts, everything that you know fits into a paradigm. Outside there's a perimeter of yet unknown stuff. And if we just live in a paradigm of what we know and what we think we know, we never get to just do the next thing. And therein lies the power, the passion, and the source of the core of our spirit. In my church, we have many singers who are very capable of singing excellent solos. And I haven't been involved in the church in the last 5 years because I travel most weekends. But I remember vividly a lady who was an extraordinarily well-trained soloist. And she would even sing with the proper hand placement, and seem to exude professionalism. And just lay out this tone that would, make your mama cry. And not always in a good way. But we also had a very untrained, gifted singer. And folks, when Miss Kenda opened up her mouth to sing, I cried. Because there was something about her heart that came through her song. And you were not even paying attention to her level of ability, which was certainly not the other woman's ability. But it didn't matter because you got enraptured by her heart. I once heard somebody say, "I'd rather see a song as hear one any day." And I wonder what that meant, because we tend to think of music as something we only hear. But music is something I see. It's something that when I'm writing a piece of music and I'm looking at a text, I visualize and enrapture that text in music. And that's where the composer comes in. That's why I just pour that visual onto the paper. Now I believe you have the capacity to do that within the music that we are playing on Sunday. We can sit there and play it perfunctory, play it note for note, play it correctly. We could even play it with the correct dynamics. We can play it with the correct flawless page turns. We could hit every nuance and everything, just perfection. But if it never got past here into here, then we did something anybody can do. We got to take it in here, down in our heart, into our core, and express it through here. And that's not something anybody can do. And nobody can teach you how to do it. So it almost makes a class like this worthless. Because it can't be taught. Where does the passion come from? It comes to me from the Spirit, from knowing that little 5-year-old girl that could play the piano back here now stands in front of a class and talks about it and gets to play and gets to share her heart. And every Sunday you're in a position of getting to do that very thing, of sitting there and sharing your heart. for 3 minutes, 6 minutes, or 9, or whatever time you've been allotted for a special piece of music or a choral anthem. And if you're content in your paradigm to play correct notes, that's all well and good, but it's not the next thing. Yeah, we should have a hymn and go home. Let's look at our sheet. There are some things that filter in. Obviously, we're at the mercy of our keys. And sometimes I have been called upon to do concerts in churches where the pianos were subpar. If they were even that. I played one in Stone Mountain, Georgia, and they embraced the heritage of their church. This was a church that had the original wood, the original organ, the original piano, the original altar. Everything about it had been so tenderly cared for. An absolutely stunning, gorgeous sanctuary. All original. We practiced in the choir suite on Saturday night. I never played that piano till Sunday morning. And if you've ever heard me play, I unleashed on the downbeat of my opening prelude and immediately broke 3 strings on the piano of this enormous, beautiful, historical piano. I couldn't stop. It's beginning to sound like Chinese harmony. And when a piano string breaks, 100 pieces go off in every direction. But I kept playing. It was a 2-minute prelude, and I prayed the strings would hold out, but they didn't. I broke over 6 over the next minute and a half. When I finished, the pastor got up and he said, "Now, Ms. McDonald will be back this evening to bring us a concert of music that will last an hour or until we run out of piano." I thought, well, that's a pretty piano, but don't put me on it, so. Every now and then you're playing a piano that rolls away. Have you ever been on that one? I have had that happen where I'm just constantly, and then, you put the pedal down and you slide up. Before you know it, you're off in the parking lot somewhere trying to continue to play. There are organs that sometimes have ciphers. Ever happened to you? Happened to me in Glorietta one year, and I was so proud to be on that organ and never was invited before and never since. It wasn't my fault. I turned on the organ and I had to move everything to the key of A to accommodate the song. You've been there, so you know that you're at the mercy of these instruments. We're also at the mercy of instrumentalists. You never know what the situation is if you're playing a duet. And sometimes the music is just what it is, but the other person isn't as capable perhaps as you, and maybe there's a moment where you're playing along and you think, we're not in the same place at all. Has that ever happened to you? Yeah, it happened to me a bunch. You're just at the mercy of all these different elements. Or you can go in there and practice great on Wednesday night after choir rehearsal or before, and then Sunday morning, it's a whole nother tuning experience. The piano or the organ has gone out of tune inside of 4 days. I've also played for instrumentalists, or at weddings, even worse, for vocalists who have what do they call it? What is it when you're afraid of like black cats? Phobias? No, superstition about rehearsing. I played for this one wedding, and this guy said, "No, it's bad luck to practice." I thought, it's bad luck if I don't. And he was singing Dan Fogelberg's Longer, and I started the da-dee-da-da-da-da-da. The introduction's a minute. And he comes to the mic, and he couldn't find the opening pitch. He's going, and I'm over there giving now full organ. So you never know what you're going to have. And all of that can deter. Sometimes you may be all immersed in the passion of the song, but these little things start feeding away and picking at you, and you start to lose all of that passion you came forth with from Saturday, and you practiced and you were just feeling the glory of God, and you were ready to give Him praise, and then you get there and the piano's out of tune, the organ's out of tune. Somebody didn't get there, or they had the photocopied music and it went from page 3 to 5, and you just never know. Anything can happen that the devil will throw at you because he wants to upset the moment. We're also sometimes at the mercy of our own schedules and being able to practice. Not being what I would consider a great sight reader. I mentioned Dr. Lewis Ball, who was the head of the music department for over 25 years, and through the years that I was then a church music major. And when his wife, Mary Charlotte, passed away from ovarian cancer, I went to her funeral. And it wasn't a month later, I received a letter from him. These are people who had seen more potential in me than I saw in myself, who gave me a chance when I didn't really feel like I had any ability to be a music major at all. And he sends me this letter, and it's not even a letter in letter format. It's an order of worship. It was his funeral. He had planned his entire funeral. And if you knew this man, he was one of those who planned every little detail. He had verse 1, F, fortissimo, verse 2, a cappella. I want verse 3 to be softer, verse 4, raise the roof. And it had this kind of instructions for 3 pages of detail, funeral music. It listed a certain organ piece that he wanted me to do for the opening and a certain piece that he wanted me to play for a meditation. And it was a Brahms trio sonata. I didn't have the music, and I actually called the University of Tennessee Dr. John Brock, who had made me a copy of an out-of-print piece of music, and I went and picked it up. Because at the very end of this 3-page letter, Dr. Ballin said, "Will you play?" And it was one of the greatest honors to know that they had seen this little girl who didn't know squat and had brought me. I wouldn't be where I am without those people. I bet you I can think of people like that who were at that crossroad, that moment in time in their life that changed the direction of where you were going. And those were those people to me. Well, folks, I worked on that Brahms, and I finally realized, and it was only like 2 pages, but it's the most difficult things. It's the Duraflame Requiem that I ever tried to play. To where I literally thought, well, he's in good health. I got time. I don't ever believe that, because when you do, something's going to go awry. And I realized I had heard he was in failing health. And I got that piece of music and I taped it to my organ. And I blocked off 2 measures. I just learned 2 every day. I put like 11-1, 11-2, 11-3. And each day I was going to learn 2 measures. 2 measures. I know that's not too much to ask. I even took one day off, and I would say, just try to recap the last 7 measures. I went to do a benefit concert at my alma mater, and after I finished the concert, the new head of the music department says, "You need to go see Lewis." Said he's not doing real well, and he's in the hospital in Knoxville. So I said, "Should I go tonight?" He said, "Yes, you need to go tonight." And so my husband and I drove back to Knoxville about 10:30 at night when I went up to the hospital room, and he was watching a UT basketball game. And he seemed really happy to see me, but I knew he wasn't doing too well. They told me he could go at any time. And I talked to him, and I just decided to be funny with him, and I said, "Lewis," I said, "I've been looking at that Brahms, and I need at least another 6 months to a year." And I've broken it down, but I said, "It's hard." And he said, "Mary," he laughed, he says, "I think if I gave you 6 more years, you'd never get done." Well, he passed away that night, in the night, and the next Sunday, this is on Wednesday, I think, and the next Sunday was his funeral at First Baptist Church in Jefferson City, and I was sick about having to play this Brahms. It was one of my most nerve-wracking experiences. Not that he was there to hear or judge, and not that Mary Charlotte was either, but I wanted to do my best for the moment. And folks, I remember sitting on that bench, and I knew it was coming. I had practiced all I could, and it still wasn't right. And at that moment, before I was to play it, I could hear Mary Charlotte say to me, "Don't go any faster than your hardest measure." You ever heard that before? Don't go any faster than your hardest measure. And I knew right where that was, because I had underlined it, circled it, drawn arrows to it. So I looked at those measures, and I just went, "Okay, that's my tempo. And I want you to know I played that piece flawlessly. Start to finish, only once in my whole life, and I have vowed never to play it again." I just buried it right there with the balls. But all that to say that sometimes you're put up to a challenge of something that just seems harder than you can achieve. But I found that there are ways that when we have to step up. Are you all good under pressure? When you have to step up. Yeah, the pressure's insurmountable, isn't it? It is awful. But if you just relax and realize that you're doing the best you can, and you're giving it all you can from your heart and with all the right purposes, I think God intercedes and sometimes helps us out. Sometimes, though, we're just intimidated, and I think that's the other big thing that I see in churches. I just ran over to practice with the youth choir. They're doing one of my pieces in their concert, and they were practicing a piece when I got there, and the kids were just kind of standing there singing and doing a beautiful job. They sounded wonderful. They didn't seem to have enthusiasm. My song's a big old gospel something or other, and I decided I just needed to lighten up a little bit. So I was telling that the inspiration of the song was Billy Ray Cyrus's "Ache You Break Your Heart." And it is. There's a moment where it sounds like, "Don't tell my heart, ache you break your heart," but that's not the words. I actually stole two measures. I didn't mean to, but it's in there. And their whole personality changed. They were moving, they were having a good time. And it showed me that sometimes when choirs will pick up on your attitude, your enthusiasm, your passion, your drive for the music, and it's contagious. But if you come in there and listen, I've been in churches where, this was another church in Georgia, I don't know Georgia church, but I remember the minister of music, he seemed so nice and reserved, but when he talked to the choir, he put on a different voice. Now, choir, I want you to welcome our guest artist, Ms. McDonald. It was almost like watching a funeral director say, "If you all would step right over here." And I thought, where was the guy I just had dinner with? But the whole choir was subdued. The whole choir seemed to have his personality. And it was almost painful trying to peel them away from the music and say, let the joy flow through you. Let the song sing forth in your faces. Somebody once said, tell your face you like the song. And maybe tell your hands this is a good song to play. There's something about just enrapturing yourself into the music that we're lacking. And I do blame sometimes the ministers of music that don't seem to get that across either. Because there's a reason, there was something significant about that song that they liked well enough to pick it for you. There was something that excited them about it. I mean, you're listening to, I don't know how much music over here for the next 4 days, but there's going to be music you're going to like, and there's going to be music you don't like. And think about why. What was it in that song that made you go, wow? That aha moment for you. And mark it. Just say, this was you. This was that moment. And there's something, and then tell your choir that, choir, when you get to top of page 8, just hang on to something because it's about to get really good. And listen, that kind of connectivity, that kind of enthusiasm for what we do is contagious. There's just no way it can't be. And I call it, because of my little Sterling College friend, unleashed passion. So, I want to challenge you to create something fresh, to just do that next thing. I just played a funeral for a good friend, our insurance salesman, who was one of the funniest guys I ever. He was MC at all of our church banquets and did a lot of entertainment. And you'll never guess, I spoke with, actually Joe and I and Heather Sorensen were up in Wilmington, Delaware when I got the call to play for this funeral on Tuesday after I would get home on Sunday. And I said, Marilyn, what would you like me to play? Well, it was the obligatory, we want Amazing Grace, How Great Thou Art, and then he would do the majesty and glory of his name. And I thought, well, that's not a piano solo at all. And this is like tomorrow. And I realized, why can't it be? I know the song, you know the song, right? There's no reason that we can't take that glorious choral song and just apply it. Let the children praise you perfectly. Hallelujahs. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't flawless. I was sitting there thinking, what is this next note? But then I thought, no, just play the words. And even when I start to get away from it, I start singing the words. I start thinking, oh, little children praise you perfectly. So should we. So should we. It's embracing the song. It doesn't matter that it's a choral. It's just the song. And it's unleashing. It's letting go of all the effervescence that rises up from within us. I gave you a piece of music today. It's called I Surrender All to You. And I gave it to you for two reasons. One, it's not going to be sung here. There's a piece in the last class. It's not either, so I just brought them along. But this is also twofold. One, in how the song itself is developed and how over the course of the song you journey. But I want you to journey because of the nature of the text. I have always said one of the hardest songs to sing is the hymn, I Surrender All. Because you shouldn't sing. I'm a believer that you shouldn't partake of the elements if you have an issue with a brother or sister, just like we're taught. We should go to them and clear the air before we partake of the Lord's Supper. And so many people just they gloss over that and do it anyway because here come the plates. Gotta take it, But I've let the plate go by me many times because my heart wasn't right. Likewise, I have never arranged the hymn, I Surrender All, because I felt like, was I really ready to give all? All is all. All is not 90%. All is all. So it's a very big risk to say, Jesus, I have what? Promised. Oh, Jesus, I have promised to serve you to the end. Be thou forever with me, my master, my friend. Y'all know that hymn? I shall not fear the battle, if thou art by my side, nor wander from the pathway, if thou be by my guide. I wrote an original chorus that simply says, I surrender all to you. All I am, I owe to you. And you know that, folks, because, listen, I barely got out of college. I don't have a master's in music. I couldn't even venture to think of having anything beyond a bachelor's degree that I barely got. All I am, I owe to God. And maybe I always sit there and wonder, why, Lord, why me? Get somebody with a doctorate. Get somebody who's qualified. What's that saying? God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. And I'm sure that when Moses was led to lead the people out of Egypt, that he says, Lord, not me. I can't speak. I'm no leader. And I'm also sure that when David was confronted with the giant, he said, oh, no, you get somebody that guy's size or close. I can't do it. And I'm kind of feeling in this room, some of you are like, well, maybe she can, but I can't do that. But see, I don't believe that. Because you love the Lord, right? He's given you a gift, right? He's instilled with you a passion. Tap it and take the lid off and let it bubble forth and be free to express the love you have. The Lord has given you this gift. Don't be inhibited, be unleashed, and do the next thing. In this piece, you're going to hear me take you on a trip. As I shared with the last group of a journey. Music to me is a journey. Every piece has a form. And for some, it may start here, it may swell up, and it may come down in a beautiful rainbow arch form. But other pieces, sometimes they'll just take off and lift you. And this piece, I want you to see, this catches, it's caught other people by surprise. It's a terrible page turn. From the last page, you see, at top of page 8, I think I was playing this at a reading session, and I just thought, then we're getting softer. No, we're fortissimo. And it caught me right at the page turn. So this is where markings help, but I want you to watch that, and we will crescendo, the ritardi crescendo, as we go into the top of page 8, and then it begins to taper down. So I'm going to ask you to read it through, and I'm going to ask you to stand and we sing and give our best offering. But more than that, I want this to be a kind of a time of a personal willingness to say, Lord, I ain't much, but you made me. Maybe that's the way to say it. Lord, you take what gifts we have. In fact, let's just pray together. Oh God, we come into this room today just to bring our meager offerings and lay them at your feet. I know that we all feel unworthy at times to be called by your name to serve the church. But Father, you need us. And you have equipped us by your gift, by your mercy, and by your passions to lead others to the throne of grace. And so, Father, we ask that in this time, you'll help us to recommit our gift and to find that deep, deep, deep level, that core of who we are that so desperately needs and wants to serve you. And may we rekindle that fire, and may it bubble forth, and we sing this song of commitment. And we give ourselves to you, Father, to develop and use us in your kingdom's work. In the name of your Son, amen. special singing choir. We'll do that one Sunday.
What church?
Come to yours. I just think that there's something that's special about when all the masses together, and when you apply the driving force of the song of what made you created, of that time, that personal time that I had before, and the commitment to put that music on paper, to then get it out to the publishers and then into the hands of those who make selections, to listen to the story and to apply that same passion and then to carry that forth. Do you know what that begins? It swirls this whole little swirling tornado-like vortex in a congregation to where the music can really permeate and make such a difference. You know, I think, and we're going to talk about this tomorrow in the Serving in the Trenches set, that there's a disconnect happening from the choir loft to the congregation. And oftentimes I feel like they're just sitting out there with this kind of, what are you going to do for me today? mentality. And here's the choir who's prepared for 6 weeks on a piece of music, and they get them to sing with all they got, but this guy's like, no, I don't care for that too much. And they may even let you know it. In fact, you may have choir people that, since you read through it, they're going, how's it in? The thing is, if the music can connect, and it can bring everybody to some level of swirl, then I think the church is going to rise up. And I believe then we begin to tap into something so much greater. We got the secret. The secret is here. The secret is in here. Was it 5 years ago, 6 years ago I wrote it? A piece. It's in my favorite set tomorrow. Then Sings My Soul. And it was one of the riskiest ventures I've ever taken chorally, because I took How Great Thou Art to a new melody. And that had not been done. In fact, it can't be done by the legal parameters of the marketing agreement, the mechanical license agreement, rather, with the Stuart K. Hines Trust. It can't be altered. But I felt anointed when I wrote it. I felt like the Lord just poured out this melody. And when I sent it to Hope Publishing, their response was, we love it, but we can't publish it because it's not in the Stuart K. Hines Trust agreement. But I knew God anointed that piece in a special way. I penned the whole piece in 2.5 hours. And I don't know what happened, but where God makes a will, He makes a way. That piece got published, and it was their #1 bestseller in 2011. And something about that piece is so different to me, because whenever we sing How Great Thou Art, we talk about the greatness of an almighty God. But folks, it's more about our soul's response. And for that reason, I titled the song, Then Sings My Soul. Now, what makes your soul sing? I want your souls to come to life and to sing unleashed and just unharnessed. And I challenge you to do that next thing, to take it to that level. Believe your story enough to share it with full-on conviction. Engage your audience with the connection of that music. And before you begin to play, you sit there and have a prayer. And as whatever's transpiring before you're to play your piece, you say, God, speak through me. Speak to me as I play this song. Make Him the audience of your song. I hope that you will, I think I've written, I don't have your sheet in front of me, but maybe some hints. Do I have some hints of how to do that, and just some little perfunctory ideas there, but there are some things that you can do. I think the great takeaway is here, don't be afraid to make a mistake. When I'm playing the Majesty, I wasn't sitting there counting errors, but I guarantee you, if you're a musician, you have a critical sense, and you can play 99 notes right and 1 note wrong, and what will eat away at you at the end of the day? That one wrong note. You will go home. And I'll ask my husband, who is an architect, but he is also musical, and that he played trumpet in the marching band. But I say, oh man, I just hit them wrong. He says, what? I didn't hear anything. So you never know what's going to transpire from your keys to their ears. And I feel like that really people are watching your song as much as they're listening. And honestly, if they're just listening, then you didn't take them to that next level. I want them to see a song. I grew up watching Lawrence Welk Show. We only had 2 channels on TV. It's pretty sad. But then we got 1,000 now, and I don't find anything to watch on any of it. So, but we used to watch the Lawrence Welk Show. Mama would bring us all in there and we'd watch that. And Joanne Castle was a pianist. She had big blonde hair and played on the upright piano. And I don't remember one single song she played, but I remember the way she played. And she would, do you remember?
She had a good
Is this
time.
ahead of y'all's time? Who doesn't know Joanne Castle?
Yeah.
Yeah, and she would just, I thought I having the best time, and it captivated me. I thought, wow, if I ever have to play the piano, I want to play like her. And it wasn't the song, it was her heart. So God has blessed you all in a mighty way, and I just challenge you to do the next thing. Take it to that next level. Find that place where your spirit connects with the joy of the song and come alive. Unleash your passion, and don't worry about what people think. So you throw a hand up, so your neck comes off. It's all good if it's driven in passion. Are there any questions or anything? I didn't cover all of that list, but our time is about gone, so I wondered if there's anything in there you had a particular question about, or
How do you organize all your books? I've
Oh,
got
so much. It is overwhelming. My husband is. Would you like to borrow him?
Yes.
He is a master organizer, and I am not at all. So he has everything if you'll notice, a lot of books nowadays come out with some sort of, like I have a book called Go Out with Joy. It's all postludes. And so there's a bunch of festive postludes, so he'll go home. And in the file drawers, it'll say organ festive postludes, or organ funeral, quieter music, or Christmas, Easter, which is an obvious thing, but to do them by seasonal are good. And then I have one that's called My Sugar Sticks. And those are my go-tos. Y'all have go-to books that if you ever just called in a last minute and they said, well, our soloist isn't going to be here, you're going to have to play something, you go, I've got that book. And I'll take that for you. Real quick, let me show you a few of these books. This is another brand new book for organists called In the Depths of His Love. And these are some of my original organ pieces that have laid in long enough. And Carson Kuhlman, who is our organ editor, said, I want your old organ pieces. And so we drug them out of the dirt and the ashes, and he cleaned them up and has released this brand new book, the very first 5 organ things I ever wrote. Right here. And it was about 40 years ago. So it's fun to kind of revisit, and they're really much better with his touch. This is one of my favorite books, Lost in Wonder, Love and Praise. It actually has a CD.
Oh, goodness. I apologize. I turned this off.
Is that your ringtone for real?
Yes, it's sci-fi. This is from a son who will call you anytime,
Any day
anywhere.
or night.
It doesn't matter. He's 42, but it doesn't matter.
No, that's
'cause,
great.
you know,
You
I
want-
need you, Mom.
You want to answer it?
Oh, no.
This book has a CD, a listening CD, and it also has a performance CD. It's all orchestrated. So if you like to play with orchestra or just in your own home, that's another step. You talk about going to the next level. Let the CD run, the accompaniment CD. I think that the product code number, and you can order these. My website, MaryMcDonaldMusic.com, has all this product, and it will list piano and companion products. Right inside there, it has the companion products, orchestral, track, accompaniment. And you have to follow along and play. One of the mistakes I made in this book was not telling you when to start. So I think the first one says, recording has 1 bar of unwritten introduction. But you just have to read the fine print to know when to start. You usually can figure that out. But that's a lot of fun. It's fun to sit at home and play with an orchestra. Yeah. And nobody can judge you. And this is another one of my favorite books. This Gospel Gold. A lot of people have heard and talked about this book. It's been one of our bestsellers. But I think this is the one, I dedicated a song to each of my grandchildren. And I've since had another grandchild, so I got to write another book. But I do Gospel Gold too. But anyway, this is just some of my favorites. It has just old hymns that you know and love. The Old Rugged Cross, Just So Sweet, What a Friend, Savior Like a Shepherd Lead Us. Just old favorite hymns. And then this one, this is my story. We've been doing this heritage series of taking the hymns of some of the great hymn writers and doing some fresh arrangements to them. Lloyd Larson has books, Charles Wesley hymns, and Larry Shackley has done Isaac Watts, and I took Fanny Crosby and did several of her hymns. And then Mark Hayes has now done one that is not featured on the back because this came out before Mark's did. But they have a whole slew of books out there, so I hope that you'll take a moment
What's in
and
your
peruse
new
it.
one?
This one, oh, this is great fun. Yeah, it's called Hymns of Rejoicing and Reflection for the Skilled Pianist. That's the irony of the whole thing. In this, and this has a lot of fun, some real festive, bigger numbers, like Oh, Worship the King is a real dynamic, fun thing of that. Shall We Gather at the River is a delicate setting of that. I kind of interspersed them, every other one. There's a God of Grace and God of Glory, which you know is going to be big, and then I Need Thee Every Hour, which is quieter. We have heard the joyful sound, More Love to Thee, Revive Us Again, The Master hath come, and Praise the Lord, ye heavens adore him. So it has some big ones and it has some quiet. It's a good bang for the buck. It's also maybe a shade more challenging. This is the latest book, so yeah. And then right now, Joel Rainey and I are working on a hymn classics series that we're doing, a book that's going to be released as two-hand and then also as four-hand editions. He does a lot of that and he's kind of teaching me, schooling me on the technique of how to do that. But anyway, thank you all so much for your time today, and I hope that you grabbed a nugget or two out of all of this, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
And you can keep the music.